Yeah, howdy, y'all. So I wanted to thank y'all for coming to today's webinar. My name is Camille. I work here at the Office of Emergency Management, and you heard Josh kick us off there with a little sound check real quick to make sure everything's going well. But I thought today we would talk a little bit about evacuation preparedness and safety. I have a presentation here that we're going to go through, and then we'll have a little Q&A section at the end. Josh, is there anything for your introduction that I missed that you'd like to kick us off with real quick?
Nope, not at all. Just excited to be here, Camille. So thanks for your help in putting this thing together.
Yeah, so excited to get going. We're kicking off very promptly right at 4:30. Gonna see my screen share real quick. Well, howdy y'all. My name's Camille, and this is our evacuation preparedness in Larimer County presentation today to just kind of get everyone on the same page of if you don't know where to start or you're looking for a little more information or some resources on what to do next. And howdy to those of y'all that might have been signed up for our evacuation drill. Hopefully this still pieces together a little bit of that information you were looking for. So, why do evacuations matter and why does preparedness matter here in Larimer County? Larimer County receives the most federally declared disasters in the state of Colorado and out of all of the counties around us. So, actually, we receive 29 disaster declarations, and the next one over would be Boulder County at 19. So, we definitely get the big and the bad here, and so it's important to be prepared. You also might have seen this new term kind of floating around real quick, mega fires. So Colorado loves fast moving, spontaneous disasters. So this isn't Florida where you get a couple of days to prepare for your hurricane evacuation. And mega fires recently are this they've been around, but we now have words to put to them. A megafire is a fire over 1,000 acres. So Cameron Peak was a megafire. East Troublesome was a megafire. So we're experiencing more of those more frequently each year. And this is important because in previous years, it used to be that it was really rare to see these types of fires happen, but now they happen pretty frequently, and especially in Larimer County. And also, the Marshall Fire really taught us that this is not just a problem for our mountain communities anymore. So everything that we're learning here is important and not just for if you live in the rural areas. Our wild urban interface is changing, climate change is changing our environment. So we're going to jump into like the number one thing. If you aren't a part, you're not doing any of this, you're starting from the very beginning, I would recommend the first step is alerts and warnings. We're going to jump to kind of those federal systems that I often hear compared the most to our local systems. So IPAWS, our Integrated Preparedness Warning and Alert System versus WIAs, the Wireless Emergency Alerts. So what are these? What do they mean? And what does that pertain to you? So, IPAWS is a federal national system. Kind of think of it as a system of systems. It has a bunch of different emergency alerts and warnings within it. It can be used by federal, state, local, tribal territories, and governments. It's a way to send alerts to multiple pathways because when we're trying, we, not the county, but general emergency preparedness personnel in general, are trying to get to you and make sure you're aware because the first step to preparedness is situational awareness. That comes through accessing information and making sure you're aware of that. So iPods can come through your NOAA weather radio. It can come through WIA, which we'll talk about in a second, the emergency alert system, which is sometimes that blue screen that pops up on your TV. But iPods is kind of the system of systems, and you'll hear that getting thrown around. What I often hear when people are like, yeah, I'm signed up, I get those Amber alerts, this, that, and the third. They're talking about the wireless emergency alerting system. And WIA is different than our hyper local system that we have here in Larimer County. So if you're signed up for Larimer County, you're signed up for NOCO alerts, then you'll still get these WIAs, and it's not a sign in. WIA is not opt in, you're automatically included. It uses your cell data and broadcasts off of via towers. It can come via text messages. That's everyone kind of remembers, I think it was last year where they were doing a federal test of the wireless emergency alert system and like everyone got an alert at the same time. And sometimes that's Amber Alerts. You can also do opt-in test messaging if you want, but those are based on your location. There's no subscription and you're automatically going to get them. You can opt out of all of them besides the presidential ones, but I would highly recommend just staying on those. But these are different than our local systems here. So Lita 911 is the company. We work with Kimberly very intimately. She used to work in our building, but then she had to move over and get a fancy new building. But NoCo Alert is the product. So NoCo Alert is probably what you've colloquially heard around. We're asking you to sign up. And actually here in Larimer County, we have a pretty good rate of signage. Like a lot of other counties deal really hard with getting people to sign up, to register for things. But here in Larimer County, we find we have a higher rate of signups than most other counties. NoCo Alert is that local product that you can use. You sign up and it's opt in. So, real quick, we're going to do a little poll here if I can figure out how to get it going about some questions when it comes to local alerts and warnings. So let's see. Okay, you should see the poll on your screen real quick. Just trying to get out of our participants here. What do we have? And also I'm checking to make sure that our alert and warning systems are working. Yeah, we're almost there at full pollage. I don't know if that's a real word, but I made it, so I said it. Okay, yeah. So, are you signed up for NoCo Alert? We have a couple of no's, so hopefully at the end of this we get some all to yes. But also that second question, are you automatically included in NoCo Alerts on your cell phone? No, you are not. So if you have a landline, you are automatically included on that landline. You are getting those calls, but often how many of us still have access to landlines? I know I don't. So, it's important to know that NoCo Alert is an opt-in service. Landlines are automatically included, but if you aren't rocking on a landline and you are not signed up, you are not reaching, or we are not able to reach you in local alerts and warnings. And those types of alerts include imminent threat to life, so shelter in place due to police activity, wildfire alerts and evacuations, weather alerts that come through the National Weather Service, so flood watches, flood warnings, red flag alerts, all of that, that's coming through LIDA. So if you're not signed up, you're not getting it. Also in our signups, you'll see at the bottom of your screen, you'll have a helpful links button. You can click NoCo Alerts right there and it'll bring you to the webpage to sign up. I know this sounds quirky and goofy and silly, but honestly, when I moved here and I shortly convinced a lot of my friends to move here, the first dinner I had where I welcomed them into my home and gave them the lay of land of Fort Collins is I took their phones and I downloaded all of the information they need and made them sign up for NoCo Alert. So if you have friends, family, the best thing you can do is make sure that they're signed up for this because step one in this evacuation, alerts, warnings, anything you take from this is situational awareness. Also, they have keywords. So a lot of y'all, especially if you live in Larimer County, you'll see this concept of a LIDA keyword or a NoCo Alert keyword. I highly suggest any events that you go to, you look and see if there's a LIDA keyword. So for those of us that were just at Tour de Fat, there's a Tour de Fat keyword where you text it to 888-777 and you get even more hyper specific alerts and warnings for events. Or I know in Larimer County we have an evacuation keyword, so general evacuations, alerts, and warnings during Cameron Peak. There is a Cameron Peak specific keyword. But see, those are also where you don't need to have an account. So if in the past during Cameron Peak, you texted into the Cameron Peak 888-777 keyword, you were getting those notifications, but we're past Cameron Peak now, and you are not opted into LEDA. So you still need to go make an account, sign up, do all of those good things. So, specifically, we've talked about watches a little bit. We talked about warnings, and those are weather related. A brief breakdown on that is a watch is all of the ingredients to bake the cupcake to make the event happen, or theoretically laid out. But a warning is like, we baked our cupcake, we baked our tornado, we baked our flood, we put it in the oven. It's pretty sure it's going to happen. So, watch is keep an eye out. Warning is it's imminently probably going to happen. But here, wildfire country, there are two alerts and warning vocabulary we really want to push into y'all to ingrain voluntary evacuation and mandatory evacuation. So voluntary, as you can see on the screen, gives people a little bit more time to evacuate when there is time. And this is a key word. Like I mentioned at the very beginning, Colorado loves our quick moving disasters. So we won't always be able to push out a voluntary evacuation. It's actually kind of rare when you consider the nature of wildfire and flood. So if you're getting a voluntary, I would really use that time to gather and go. Anyone who has special considerations should evacuate during this time. So if you are unable to self-evacuate, or you are a part of a family communication plan where you are going to help mother, brother-in-law, aunt, uncle, grandma, grandpa to go and get their car or help them evacuate, you need to either be doing that beforehand or during the voluntary evacuation. If you have large vehicles or horse trailers or large animals or anything that you're not like a little pocket rocket on the road that can just take and go, I would suggest you don't wait for that mandatory. You go during a voluntary. And then, like it states, mandatory is issued when there is no time. And hopefully, if I can ingrain first thing, sign up for alerts and warnings. Second thing is hopefully make your preparedness bag. But the time to make a preparedness bag is not during a mandatory evacuation. When it is issued, there is no time. You must move immediately. Do not pack. Do not wait. You evacuate. So for me, if I was getting a mandatory evacuation, I would be working, honestly. I would not have time to prep a bag here at my house. My roommate would be responsible for that. But if we waited to the last minute, what she would be grabbing is pet, her ID, her anything on her body, and going. She's responsible for my dog too. But I really hope that if you can do anything, you share the good news about signing up for NoCo Alert, and that you are going to leave during a voluntary. And you kind of get the group think on that going, that voluntary is best to go. So, what do you need to consider? So, you got that voluntary, or we maybe got that mandatory, and now we're like, oh, evacuation considerations. I wish I had thought about this earlier. Well, lucky for you, you have now. How do we get to evacuations? How does that process work? So I'm going to kind of talk beginning to end of what it looks like from the first little smoke to the notification on your phone to what it looks like after. So how this works is, let's pretend we're doing an evacuation or a wildfire situation. Essentially, what happens is wildfire is spotted, right? Someone calls it into dispatch. They call the non-emergency line, or they call 911 or whoever, and that's going to get routed into its local dispatch. And then dispatch is going to route that call to whoever the local fire district is. And if it's in unincorporated Larimer County, that'll get routed to Larimer County Emergency Services Department located within the sheriff's office, right? So our sheriff's office deputies, they have people in ES who can drive around in those big yellow trucks. So if you see any of those Larimer branded yellow cars, those are our wildland firefighters out in there. And they'll drive to the location of where smoke was seen or fire was confirmed over the phone, and they go and they get their eyes on the land, right? They go and check it out. They go and see what's the acreage, and then they start taking in a lot of fire science, which, hey, I didn't go to college for fire science, so it's mildly above the pay grade, but essentially what they're looking at is acreage of the land, close proximity to parcels and people, the slope of the land, the wind speed conditions, the ingress and egress of that neighborhood, the fuel type on the ground. Is this potential to Like, is this a structure that's a potential to go into a wildland firefight, or is this just a single individual structure, right? And so all of that, then they relay that information back to dispatch and or LEDA. And the sheriff's office and LEDA, Larimer Emergency Telephone Authority, have worked really hard together to get these pre-identified polygons. And what I mean by polygon is on our evacuation maps, the county has kind of broken into these polygons or these shapes that include all of that fire science we just talked about. So if the fire is within a certain polygon, and these aren't the real numbers, but fire is spotted, they're calling dispatch and they're saying, go ahead and give a mandatory evacuation out for polygon 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then typically how that goes is we are aggressive with our evacuations. We are forward leaning with that. Better to be a little annoyed and evacuate a polygon that's not needed than situations we have seen arise in California. So the mandatory polygons, you'll get your notification and you will be prepared and prepped because we all attended this lovely webinar. But those polygons that are touching the mandatory, again, looking at fire science and all of that, they will probably pop voluntary. And then from there, that notification, ding, goes to your phone if you have created your NOCO alert account and you are opted in. After that, then the process goes, they work with the sheriff's office. Still, emergency services is located within the sheriff's office, but our sheriff's deputy, like those cops that you see every single day, they then start the door-to-door process where they are going door to door, knocking on properties and making sure that those individuals are out of their house, and they flag the houses after to make sure that there's no duplication of effort. With a grain of salt, the door-to-door notifications only happen if it is safe for first responder personnel to do so. And additionally, when you receive a mandatory evacuation, it is you should leave, but no one is going to come in and pull you out of your house to leave unless there are children or adults who cannot make decisions for themselves. The sheriff's office has the authority to remove kids and adults with access and functional needs from those situations if they cannot advocate for themselves to evacuate. But no one's going to force you to leave. But also, once those are gone, do not expect first responders to come back if you change your mind. So then you get your alert, your warning. It sends out where to go. So either we'll stand up over on the Office of Emergency Management side, an evacuation shelter or an evacuation center. Those are two different keywords here. Center is kind of like a stop and go place, like maybe the fire won't take all day, so we're not going to do overnights, but here's where you can go in the meantime. And a shelter is kind of that 24-hour partnering with the Red Cross overnight services congregate setting. So yeah, and then for y'all, you need to add, is your evacuation plan going to include congregate sheltering, or do you need to set up a budget and plan that, hey, I'm not a congregate shelter type. I want a hotel, or I'm going to stay with grandma, mom, dad, go to a friend's house, whatever that might look like. So hopefully that process from like smoke in the sky to notification on your phone to you leaving your house is a little bit more clear, and there's a bunch of moving parts. And that was a very condensed version too. So again, I see, Josh, that you're clocking questions in the chat. Thanks for doing that. And if you have any, go ahead and drop them and Josh will respond to you. So, what are your personal considerations that you need to have? You know, you thought about, do I leave during a voluntary? Do I leave during a mandatory? But what does that really entail? So over here on our green side of our forest, kind of our blue skies, everything's good. Your family communication plan, which again, in the links section, I dropped a PDF document that you can download of a template fillable family communication plan. And what that is everyone gets on the same page of what are the phone numbers that we're memorizing? What's our muster point? And a muster point is a location in which you all meet up at, and you all understand that this is the point of spot that when things go bad, we're going to go here. And that way, when someone doesn't show up, and even if you can't get in control or contact with them, you know something has gone awry. It's less likely to fill your mind with, oh, well, maybe they're stuck in traffic, or maybe this, that, and the third. It's really important in home fire safety you have a muster point. So when the firefighters show up, they're able to immediately start fire suppression and not search and rescue when you can tell them everyone in our family is at the muster point. Everyone here is accounted for. But also, when it comes to wildfires, this is often larger than a single individual structure fire, right? So, what's a muster point for your home? What's your muster point for your community? And then maybe what's a muster point outside of the county? And make sure that this is a way that everyone could get to it without GPS. Everyone knows it. So, pick good landmarks. Everyone knows how to get there, even the kiddos, if you were to get separated. And also, what's your level of responsibility? I kind of talked about this a little bit. My level of responsibility within my household, because I am a first or second responder, and so I'm going to be deploying to the EOC to handle an event, means I'm not here at the house to help pack things up, to get my dog out, to grab our important documents. So my level of responsibility when it comes to personal evacuation is pretty low. I keep an evacuation kit in my car. I keep materials for myself, but I'm really relying on my roommate. And so we've had a lot of conversations about that. So what I did is I made it as simple as possible for her to grab that stuff. It's all located at the very front of the house in one convenient spot. It's not scattered a bunch of different directions, because that responsibility is a lot higher for her. And what's your transportation availability? Do you know that you have reliable car services to get you out? Are you needing a van that requires a lift gate for medical devices? All of that. So for me, I have a vehicle I'm able to drive. I would probably self-evacuate in my car. No one's relying on me to evacuate. But if you have mother and father-in-law relying on you, make sure you talk about that in advance. Make sure we're aware of what that means and how to get it done. Because if not, trying to figure that out while everyone in your community is also trying to get on the roads at the same time is not going to be the best time. And do you have a plan that doesn't include your phone? And what I mean by that is, do you have a plan for how to get around your community without GPS? If you have to take a back road because of road closures, do you truly know your community? Pot calling the kettle black a little bit here. I'm still learning the road systems. I'm not as familiar with Fort Collins, but I definitely try to challenge myself to not use my GPS as much as possible. I know some of y'all are probably shaking your head or like, this generation uses their GPS for everything. Really challenge the people around your lives to use stuff the old way. Not everything has to be done on our phones, because there will come a time, i.e., think back to the 2013 floods, where that stuff wasn't available. And then my last thing I'd like to say, blue skies, listen to your gut. Are you comfortable? You don't have to wait for a voluntary evacuation notice to evacuate. If you're not feeling comfortable, you think something's going on, pack your car up, leave early, go see a movie, go out to dinner, go somewhere outside of the area. And the worst case scenario is you feel a little guilty and goofy when you didn't get evacuated, but you practiced evacuating your car and you listen to your gut. And the best case scenario is now you've given you and your family even more time. So if you're not feeling comfortable, you don't need to wait for us to evacuate. Do it on your own. So, red sky situations. We see that fire in the background. Sheltering, like I mentioned. Are you a congregate type or are you a hotel type? Are you a friend type? I used to have friends that lived in Johnstown, so I stayed with them during Alexander Mountain Fire. Also, really integrally important, our medications and our personal assistant devices. Do we have the storage for them? Do we have quantity of space for them and battery backups and charging capabilities? If you don't, let's start touching base with our insurance companies. Let's start seeing what we can to get additional prescriptions for 90 days, a minimum of a week if possible. Let's start seeing if we can contact our insurance companies to give them backups. I know some of this with loss of access to Medicaid might be difficult, but these are the steps you need to take, not during Black Skies days. And then also don't forget your dog. Come on, let's make plans for our dogs. We got food, medication, and crate. Those are the top 3 things you need to plan for your dog. So my dog, Snowball, love him. He has intervertebral disc displacement, which means his back legs don't work sometimes. So he can use a wheelchair. And also he has refrigerated pain medication that I need to consider when going somewhere. Well, it's really, I'll hone it now. My roommate needs to consider that. No, but I make a plan with it. Where are we going that can accompany my dog with me and have access to refrigeration? So, and Important note here, if you want to shelter with your dog, Larimer County is really working hard with our nonprofit partners, our American Red Cross partners, to make it to where you are able to congregate shelter with your dog. Not every shelter is like this, but we're working on making the majority of the shelters like this. But you can only do that if you have a crate for your dog. A crate for your dog. We cannot have dogs free roaming just because of the high stress situation of congregate sheltering. Otherwise, we'll partner with someone like the Humane Society, which is where your pet will go, and we'll make sure that we have transportation to and from, or you can transport yourself to and from to go and see your pet. So, we've considered what we're doing during the event, kind of when we're going, what needs to go in my kit. But here's like a little more deep dive into that layer of like building your emergency kit. You'll see also in the resources link that I shared a very basic kit checklist. So a lot of people in the emergency management world going to let you in on some tea here. They don't really like checklists because they're not, your emergency kit is not one size fits all. When you go through the checklist, you're going to notice stuff. Well, this isn't here and this isn't here. And that's because your checklist is almost as individual as your DNA. Like what you and your family needs for your household is going to fluctuate through what space you are in your family. Do you have young kids, old kids? Are you a grandparent? Do you have no kids? All of those needs are hyper realistic or hyper specific, sorry. But where should you start? Well, this checklist is a good beginner. If you're like, I don't even know where to start, or I don't know what to tell my friends where to start now that I'm super far down this preparedness journey, share this checklist, get them going. It'll at least be better to do some of it than none of it. And then you'll start realizing those gaps that we can't consider because we're not walking your very specific life path. So, like I said, they're hyper specific to your family's needs, depending on your medications, depending on your family lifestyle. Like my family here at my household, it's all on one person. I can't spread that load between multiple people. So our go bag is a little smaller because it's one person who has to get everything. And we've all heard this. You need to make a go bag, an evacuation kit, get out bag, whatever you might call it, bug out bag for 72 hours. But that's a great starter point. Really still aim for that 72 hours if you don't know where to begin, but truly with the nature of disasters and how disasters are changing and how more frequently they're happening, you need to aim for a 1 week plan. And that's a little difficult when we're telling you to get water, and we're telling you to get food, and we're telling you to pack clothes and all of these things. But truly, the best case scenario is 1 week of sustainability and 72 hours of peak individual sustainability. So, also consider what is feasible for you in your bug out bag. Is it feasible if you're a family of 5 to fill your evacuation kit with canned food and water and all of these heavy items on top of everything else you have to do? Can you pre-store some of those? Like I mentioned, a lot of my evacuation kit material is located in my car because my car goes with me pretty much everywhere I go. But this also means that when I have to cycle out stuff to double check and make sure that the materials in my kit are good, whereas I probably could only do it about annually or biannually for the stuff in my house, the stuff in my car, it needs to change with every season because of the changing fluctuations of the weather and how that impacts the materials in the car. Like the water, canned water I have in the car right now is different than the canned water I had in my car from last winter because I learned the hard way that ice expands, explodes everywhere, and then melts in the summer and destroys everything in your car. So now I'm doing quarterly and I'm changing that stuff out. So learn from my mistake, do it beforehand. But start with your basic checklist, like I mentioned, if you're like, I don't know where to go. And again, I just can't emphasize this enough. Everything that we're talking about for ourselves, that we're talking about for our kids, applies to our pets. They can't advocate from themselves, and I get it. None of us, especially here in Colorado, the biggest dog state I know, are truly planning on leaving Fido, but you never know what's going to happen. You don't know how your pet's going to react to your high stress situation. So make that plan beforehand, make that doggy kit, practice loading your dog into the crate so they know what's going on too, because only you can advocate for them. So, what are some extra special considerations that I have heard through my classes, through experience that are forgotten in evacuation kits? Documentation, I think People often think so much about the heavy items, the preparedness kit items, all the apocalypse stuff. But documentation is truly what's going to help you get onto that recovery process. You and all of your community are going to be descending on the Larimer County building to get copies of these things unless you already had your copies beforehand. So house title, all of your insurance copies, passport, marriage license, birth certificate, car title, social security, medical documents, documentation of your prescriptions, of your living will, all of that. You can put all of that on a flash drive. You can put it all on the cloud. You can make physical copies and put them all in your evacuation kit. You can leave them in your fire safe at home. But again, make sure, and I always, little caveat, if you're going to get a fire safe, make sure it's actually rated. So those are a 1 out of 4 rating system. Josh, correct me if I'm wrong. I always forget if 4 is the best or 1 is the best, but those fire safes that you buy often for like $50 off of Amazon truly aren't able to withstand the temperatures that a wildfire or a structure fire has. They're a great starting point, but really, and this is a very expensive cost, but the average of a rated fire safe is going to be somewhere between $500 and $900. So look into that, see if that's feasible for you. Yeah, but documentation. And let's say you're like, cool, everyone's saying cloud this, upload that, but how do I do it? I don't know how to do it. AmeriCorps actually has a really fantastic programs in all the public library systems, Berthoud, Loveland, Red Feather, Fort Collins, called the Digital Navigators Program. And I've touched base with a lot of the library directors saying that, hey, I'm pushing people who don't know how to get copies of their documents, don't know how to put them on a flash drive or put them in the cloud, and sending them to y'all. So if you want help and someone to walk through with you for that, you can do that at the Loveland Library, at the Berthoud Library, through this Digital Navigators AmeriCorps program. So go there, get that done. Second, devices. Oh, well, I grabbed my phone, I grabbed the Switch for the kids, I grabbed the laptop, but we use our chargers, right? And we leave them in random spots, or at least I know I do. Notoriously lost so many in my life. So I have now just bit the bullet of the financial cost of duplicating those chargers in my evacuation kit, especially if it's a mandatory. I don't have time to go running around for a charger and making sure that it makes it into the kit. So those just live there now. And that also goes for medical assistance devices if you're able to. Let's get duplications of those chargers or put our charging spot very close to where we're putting our kits. Also, coolers for refrigerated medicine. I see a lot of times people are like, okay, like, and for those of you that don't know, American Red Cross shelters are required to have refrigeration available for this reason. It's an ADA standard to make sure there is somewhere to store your refrigerated medicine. But how do you get it from point A to point B? Well, for me, I have a tiny little Trader Joe's cooler that I'm gonna throw some ice in and my dog's medicine. I'm only rocking with one little vial of medicine that I gotta transport, but coolers, something of that nature, if that is a part of your daily life, you need to consider that for evacuation purposes. And the last thing I see the most is everyone is so proud of the little canned food collection for their evacuation purposes. But if you're not buying the cans with the pull top, you're not getting into that food without knife and probably finger injuries. So can openers, bring can openers. I think it's the thing that is often missed the most. Pets, I know you're like, we get it, don't forget the pets, but just making sure crates are forgotten, leashes are forgotten, your rabies vaccination cards, and get your pets chipped. Occasionally, we have partnerships with the Humane Society for lower chipping prices. We don't actually have one out right now, but as soon as that comes out, I'll have the emails of everyone who is on today's webinar, and I'll be able to blast that to y'all. But getting your pets chipped is the best way to get reunified with them. Also, rabies vaccination. So at the Humane Society, let's say you can't congregate shelter with them at, Foundation's church or whatever. So you have to drop your pets off at the Humane Society. If you don't have documentation that your pet has gotten rabies, distemper, all of that good vaccination statuses for dog sheltering, they'll go ahead and revaccinate your pet right then and there. So this doesn't hurt the pet. A duplication of vaccines is actually fine, but you could skip all of that just by having copies of your pet's vaccination status and making sure your tags have they're registered with the Humane Society and you have your rabies tags on your pet. The last thing, special considerations, I also get, well, what do you mean a week's worth of stuff? Do you know how much clothes that is if you have 5 kids? Or for me, just how many clothes that takes to pack away. Um, a great example of this that I have found is a little hack, a little cheat sheet is use your dirty laundry. If you are looking for seasonal, weather appropriate clothes that fits everyone and everyone likes, and normally your clothes is all located in one dirty hamper and it's a good mix of like socks and underwear and t-shirts and jackets or whatever of the season, grab that, throw that in the car, get out of the area, and there will always be a laundromat somewhere. Well, don't speak in definition or like hyper generalizations, but normally there will be a laundromat somewhere that you can go and wash that clean clothes. And it's typically clothes that makes you feel good because it's our favorite clothes because we wear it frequently and often. So just a little tidbit. If you're like, well, how do I pack a week's worth of clothes to just exist all year round and never think about? Try that tip. Okay, when leaving your house, here are some final considerations. Inside your house, make sure you turn your gas off. Make sure you close all your windows and doors and you seal them. Leave the lights on so the firefighters can act or see your house in smoking conditions. And make sure you switch off your air conditioning so it stops pulling that smoke inhalation into your home. Outside, do not turn your sprinklers on. I know that you might think, oh, I'll turn my sprinklers on, it'll wet the house, it'll stop the fire, but often that lowers the water pressure that the firefighters need in your area, especially at that bottom bullet point, prepare water sources. The best thing you could do is turn your sprinklers off, shut off your propane tank, connect a hose to your house, the longest hose you have, and leave. So they might use that hose if that is available for them and your house is in a defensible space. And also, last but not least, and we'll kind of talk about this in mitigation, or Josh will a little bit, but bring all the flammable items inside if you have time, like wooden patio furniture, throw it inside or throw it in a pool. Get it off your house, get it as far away from your house as possible. Make sure your house doesn't have wooded structures or extra wood for winter laying against your house. No random gasoline canisters right up near. Anything that's flammable, we're going to pull it away. And everything that's flammable in the house, go ahead and move it towards the middle of your house if possible. See, a lot of this is more preparedness. And eventually, or if you're getting a mandatory, we aren't asking you to go and do all of this. Oh, on the preparedness webinar, they said do all of this before the mandatory. No, go ahead and just leave. But if there's time, these are things that will help the wildland firefighters access your house, close all your windows and doors, but leave your house unlocked. Things of that nature. So the home ignition zone and zone mitigation. Yeah. Josh, do you want to jump on real quick and talk about your favorite thing, the home ignition zone?
Yeah, sure can. Thanks, Camille.
Camille.
So,
So,
um,
um,
Camille, you might be on if you want to mute your.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to mute me real quick.
Yeah,
Hey,
all
that didn't work.
good. Try it now. Cool. So yeah, everybody, the home ignition zone, and I'll in just a second I'll show you the Wildfire Partner Program webpage, web on our sheriff's office website, and that'll be a great resource for you guys to check out. But essentially, the home ignition zone it really just involves, you can see the picture there, 3 different zones, 0 to 5 feet from your house. Just think of your house is in the center and then 0 to 5 feet around it. That's really the area where you want to be super vigilant about the work that you do. Remove those things that are flammable, away from your house. Even if your fence connects up to the house and it's a wooden fence, consider installing metal gates or things of that nature. And you can see the breakout on the screen there in that zone 2, 5 to 30 feet, and then zone 3, 30 to 100 feet. So work that you do in that home ignition zone is going to help prepare your home to be a little bit more defensible, and it's going to increase your chances of your property survivability there, your home's survivability, in the event of a wildfire. Lots of nuance there. But really, the best thing that we can share you. And Camille, if you don't mind, I would love to share. Is there any way you can give me the ability to share the
Yeah,
screen?
I'll stop screen sharing and you should be able to take over.
Okay, awesome. So I'm gonna share with you the website for our Larimer County Wildfire Partners program. And so I'll also drop the link, in the chat, or Camille, if you can do it. If you go to this website, there's a ton of information on this website. But our Sheriff's Office Emergency Services Unit, they coordinate this program, and they're working with a number of fire departments in the area as well, where if upon your request, someone can come out to your property, your household, do a walk around the household, talk to you about things that they see in that home ignition zone, and essentially give you a report after that visit that'll provide some recommendations as to stuff that you can do to better prepare your house for that wildfire in the event of a wildfire. There's also some useful information. Colorado State Forest Service, if you can see where my mouse is here, they have a home ignition zone guide to where you can click that and just go through a ton of really useful information about the home ignition zone and things that you can do in this home ignition zone as well. So really useful informational material here. And Camille, I think you also have this, or at least the Wildfire Partners program, in a link, in the resources feature there in Zoom. So also what you can request an assessment. Let me back up here. So if you go to this main web page and then the service request box here, you can see that there are a number of fire departments in our area that are working with our sheriff's office who have personnel trained who can do that for the areas that they serve. So I really encourage you to check this out. And if you haven't had one of these assessments done yet, I really encourage you to do so. It doesn't cost anything, and it's just a ton of really useful information for you. All right, Camille. So I will stop sharing, and I think it's back to you unless there was anything else you wanted me to chat on.
Yeah, we'll see when I go back to the PowerPoint.
Okay, fair enough.
Yes. So we're talking about, and Josh, it all looks right on your screen now that I jumped back, right? Cool.
Yep, sure
Yeah, so
does.
we're talking mitigation pays. Why does mitigation pay? I know this is a little bit more on the county side, but what do they say? For every $1 we spend on mitigation, we get about 6 to 18 back, depending on what the mitigation is. But these are just some local photos and also one pretty nationally well-known photo that I think will go down in mitigation history of these examples of why mitigation pays off. So this is a picture from a Boulder County home in 2016 that survived the Cold Springs fire. Similarly, Boulder has a wildfire partners program too. That's kind of what we're modeling ours off of, except Boulder's currently interacts with insurance agencies and ours does not. So that's a key difference between those two. But yeah, this just goes to show them it's a home. As you can see, the first zone, that 0 to 5 feet, has pretty much no fuels around it. The trees are pretty far and well limbed up around it. And everywhere around that like zone 2 and zone 3 for them, you can see some extreme burn scars. So they were able through mitigation to protect their home. And I say this with a grain of salt. It's important to note that every time I say this, I always get someone that goes, well, then why prepare? But you can mitigate your home perfectly. You can make the perfect go bag. You can do everything correct through everything, but we can't control Mother Nature. And chaos theory always tells us to be flexible and take everything with a grain of salt and roll with the punches. But you will get more out of mitigating your property through this evacuations plan than not. You will have a higher chance of your house saving than it. And this isn't just for, rural communities, especially post Marshall Fire. And I would really hone on lobbying for different HOA codes, not having wooden fences that lead right up to your house, like really putting a step forward in your community to change some of these things that are just considered status quo because from our next picture, you can see, again, this is a picture of the Maui fire. This is a little grainier on here than I expected, but it shows again a home that through those devastating, very hyper urban fires, one home that survived. And that's because that roof there is a fire retardant roof. In a better quality version of this picture, you'll be able to see that the house is surrounded by rocks, and that the homeowner herself ended up doing an interview where she said that she practiced mitigation techniques. Now, not to say that these homes around didn't, but this is just another example of when wildfire mitigation protected a home from something that was almost creating 100% property loss and a lot of lives lost in this fire. I think this photo will be pretty nationally well known for years to come when it goes in the mitigation landscape. And locally here, this is I think her name's Christina Burry. She is a homeowner and a state forester for the Colorado, or either United States Forester or a Colorado Forester. But her home was located in the Storm Mountain region, and her home again did not burn during the most recent Alexander Mountain fire, and she is quoted saying that she thinks a small stone patio and rock wall provided areas for wildland firefighters to create a defensible space around her home. So she did not have a whole bunch of wood. Obviously, she's standing on a wood deck, but fire was encroaching very closely to her property. In fact, 100 feet up the slope, the homeowner closest to her lost their property. So again, fire is its own beast. It creates its own path, but these instances are proven ways to show that mitigation works, and it's better to do it than to not. You can locate, I don't think I had this news article in the chat, so maybe Josh, if you're able to drop that news article into the chat to read more on what specifically they accomplished here with her property, but it's a good read. So we're gonna wrap it up here, put it all back together in 5 simple steps, and then kind of open it up to questions in the chat that Josh and I will answer. If there's anything you felt missed or that you wanted us to speak on. So if we're putting it all back together, your evacuation plan should have 5 steps. Step 1 is register for emergency alerts. And I mentioned Weld, Boulder, and Larimer because you should register for alerts where you live, play, and work. If you recreate a lot in Boulder or you live in Weld County but you work over here in Larimer, it's important to register for all emergency alerts and also know that all systems are interoperable. Weld County uses code red. Boulder County uses different evacuation terminology than we use. So it's important to familiarize yourself with these and sign up for all of them because disasters strike when you're hiking, they strike when your kids are at school, they can happen when you're at work. So having access to these systems based off of where you are is step 1. Step 2, like I said, no 2+ evacuation routes. Unless you're one of these communities where it's one way in, one way out, know how to get out of your community multiple ways, how to get to that muster point we talked about earlier in multiple ways, and how to do that without GPS, like I said earlier. Step 3, we're gonna build our evacuation kit. And I say check on it twice a year, unless you're going with the car method, then check on it quarterly. And when I say build this evacuation kit, I'm not saying after this, you're totally failing at preparedness if you don't go home, do whatever, fill out that checklist immediately, but start on it. For example, in our Dare to Prepare class that we offer, we go through an evacuation kit that in 2023, so I'm not sure how inflation might have changed these prices, that I was able to build in its entirely at the Dollar Tree for about $35. Now these are lower quality products sometimes. Also, it didn't include some of the stuff that is super personal to me, like medications, clothes, all of that, but it had a pretty good starter process for evacuation kits and planning. So you don't need to go to Amazon, you don't need to go to Walmart and spend $1,000 on an evacuation kit, and it doesn't have to be overwhelming, but we're going to at least start it. That's step 3. Step 4 is we're going to harden our home. We're going to follow our home ignition zone plan. We're going to do this before we need to evacuate. Know that this is playing into our overall evacuation plan on how to make sure we're getting out safely and that our home has the best chance of surviving whatever the event might be. And lastly, none of this needs to happen in a vacuum. If you're planning for just yourself and you have other people in your household, you're doing a disservice to them. Make sure that we're including our family and our neighbors in our evacuation plans. For example, I live in condos that are right attached to each other. I made sure that I'm introduced to all of my neighbors, and my neighbor to my right, we've developed a really good friendship where she has a key to my house and she can get in if I need her to help with something, and Katie can't. She lives alone, so we'll always make sure that I scratch her back, she scratches mine. So these are great examples. It's a quick, if you were to take this entire webinar and break it into 5 easy steps, these are what those steps would be. Okay, so kind of opening up to questions. Uh, you can drop them in the chat. I'm gonna stop screen sharing so I can make sure I can read the questions in its totality. But if not, we'll wait a couple of minutes. Thank you for your time today. Josh, is there anything you think I missed on the evacuation process?
No, really good information, Camille. Thanks for all of that. And yeah, everyone, if you do have a question, I think earlier I mentioned you can just put it in the chat, but you might not have that ability to do so on your end. So feel free to use the raise hand feature in Zoom or go to the Q&A feature, type in your question, and we've had a couple come in and we've answered it, but we can take it those ways.
Yeah, sorry. Definitely use the Q&A feature on that.
Just giving it a minute, Camille, to see if anybody has a question.
Yeah, and I don't know if everyone could read the Q&A, but excellent statement, Tom, there with the former mayor of Superior suggested if families have multiple vehicles to take some to a safe place during a voluntary, that way there would be less vehicles on the road during the mandatory. So yeah, excellent. Hadn't considered that before. I've always been a one vehicle household, haven't quite upgraded to those multiple vehicles yet, but yeah, that's a great point there.
Yep, totally. Just had a question come in. Essentially, they're asking to share this recorded webinar on their community website, and do they have permission to do so? And will the links and chats be available too? So, Camille, yeah, I'll take that one. I think our plan, Camille, is this is being recorded, correct? And we'll hang it to the website later. Cool.
Yeah, so this is being recorded. We're gonna edit out all of my typos. No, I'm just kidding. But we will just trim up the beginning a little bit when we were getting started, and then we'll post it to the website. And then from there, it's free game. But also, I documented everyone's email that signed up for the webinar, so I'll send the link out, and then I'll also send copies of all of the documents we've talked about today, and a couple that I might have forgotten about, but I think would be good information to have. So.
Awesome. Standing by for any further questions. Camille, I don't see any other questions coming in. So,
Yeah, I just answered everything so perfectly in the webinar. So that's what we like to see. No, okay. Well, if you have comments, questions, concerns, they don't have to just stop when the webinar ends. Shoot Josh or I an email and we'll get back to you when we can. But besides that, I wanted to thank you for taking your time on a Tuesday afternoon to come learn for an hour with us. Hopefully you learned some good stuff and everyone signed up for no co-alerts. Those two no's we had earlier, they're going to be yeses now. So, besides that, have a great day, and I'm going to go ahead and stop the webinar.